You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaffe.
And me, Danny Denhard. And today we are going to dive into, is AI resulting in junior jobs going away? So Jonathan's going to kick off with this one, but it's something we promised we'd talk around. So Jonathan, what's your view?
I mean, there's an awful lot out there, Dan, and just about everyone listening to this podcast will have seen pieces around the way, there's lots of junior work going away. AI is going to replace lots of jobs. There's a lot of doom and gloom. And there will be a whole wave of junior level jobs that disappear because the whole thing will be automated with AI. And part of the argument then is, in things like knowledge work firms, like accountancy practices, like legal practices, you strip out all that junior activity, you give that all to the computers, and hurrah, we save a lot of money in the short term. But actually then the argument becomes, but those junior roles are where people gain the experience and knowledge that allow them to become senior people later. So if you strip out all those junior roles, that will be a short-term advantage. But 10 years from now, you're going to be in big trouble because there'll be nobody coming through to be partners in the firm. That's how the argument goes. But for me, I don't think it's going to, I think it's more and more evident. AI is not going to replace jobs, lock, stock, and barrel. What it will do is replace tasks in jobs. And that's true of junior roles, as it is of any other kind of role. So I don't think it will take out complete junior roles in businesses, but it will take away a lot of the lower level, repetitive or analytical work that is currently done by individuals. And the AI will pick that up. It will do it quickly. It'll do it at scale in a way that we can't at the moment. So it will take some of the tasks away, which means that junior role will probably change as we go forward. And I think the smart organizations will still have people coming through, maybe in fewer numbers than they would recruit before, but there will be that work to do. And those roles will change. And without jumping to the end of the thing, really, I think the advice I would give to anyone who's graduating this year or at university is, as we've always said, Dan, get all over AI, get a real understanding of it, because the roles that will be there in the next 2 or 3 years will be the ones where you can take AI and do some of this automation work. And I think if you've got really strong AI skills that you can apply to a business as you come out of university or you're early into your career, there's plenty of work for you right now as this thing evolves. How do you see it, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to take a step back and then step in. So I would say there's like the cultural impact of it, as in from a work perspective. So I think there's many managers that are terrible managers and terrible with junior staff. And I think they give no onboarding, no training, there's no development, and because they experience it that way. And that often misdirects or misaligns careers. And I think what's combinating now, if we were to step in a little bit, is people who believe, or managers, middle managers believe that AI is doing the junior roles and doing the junior jobs. They're overlooking the second and third order effect as all the things that you went into. And I actually believe that there's going to be a time where middle managers and managers are going to be thinking that AI is doing a good job where it's actually doing a very average job. And what we're going to see is not only the impact on junior roles and junior progression, but also long-term impact on jobs themselves and the companies themselves. There are some threats and also some opportunities there. There's going to be a lot more businesses that are going to be created with AI as like human and AI. So I think AI is going to unlock a lot of new, smaller businesses. And I think a lot of people won't have to go through the hardship and the problems that they maybe would have done in some businesses. Although I do think there is a lot of benefit by doing that and getting the battle scars. A couple of other opportunities will be more startups, more SMBs, people will own their own businesses again. I do worry that the smaller the businesses, there's going to be some super big companies and then much smaller businesses. But the threats, as you were saying, are removing mentorship and developmental side of on-the-job training and doing the hard yards. And I do think the medium to long term is going to impact all businesses, and it's going to impact many middle managers more than actually junior jobs. And that's where I think, that's where I believe we're going to land. And a lot of junior people will think, I don't need to go into the workplace. I'm actually going to go out and do something for myself with AI and with a couple of colleagues, as opposed to go into big organizations.
I agree with that. I mean, there's a separate question for me, but I completely agree with you. I think we will see an explosion of, micro businesses, and I'm on record already as saying the first $1 billion solopreneur business is out there somewhere. I don't know what it is, but somebody's going to do that. And the opportunity for people to rapidly form, create, and grow small businesses in groups of one or two or three, as you've just alluded to, I think AI gives that an enormous kick. That's a huge separate subject. I think what if you look at the traditional firms, and let's assume we are going to have lawyer firms and accountant firms in the current form. Let's say the big guys currently, let's assume they do survive. But I think when we look down at the junior jobs there, I think what you might see is, as I've said earlier, that there'll be fewer of them, but I think they might be harder than they currently are. What do I mean by that? I mean that if the AI is doing some of the more repetitive tasks, if it's doing the drafting of the first document, if it's summarizing documents, doing basic analysis, then somebody coming into a practice like that might be expected to take decisions, contribute judgment, get more involved in client work earlier, as in front end client communication, and those kind of level of things, which currently they might not get to for 3-4 years. They might now be asking to do that next first few months. So that might be there might be a greater demand on those people. Might be more interesting therefore as well. Makes the job more interesting more quickly. But I think that might be one of the side effects of this is that the AI is handling some of the simple tasks, so people have to get into the complex tasks quicker. And then what becomes really important there is exactly what you just talked about, Dan, which is then you've got to have good mentorship and good guidance to those people, so they don't come unstuck and drown in a situation that's very difficult for a junior person to handle.
Yeah, if there's a couple of companies I'd recommend people look into if they're interested in. They're both actually in the legal space. So there's Legora, who used Jude Law in advertising, which got a lot of plaudits, and there's Harvey. And essentially, what they've done is they are targeting and replacing entry level and more junior legal jobs. And when there was a comparison run, Claude actually outperformed these two rappers on top of these LLM. It's one of those industries that if you can productize it and there's a recipe which you can tweak, it will be something that people will target and will try and replace. As you said, I think the human side of it, the human skills, the human to human skills will be something that if you're any part of your career and you want to double down on something, that is something you should probably double down in and start understanding how a lot of the operational side works and some of the more complex things that happen within your business, and teach kids or some of your family members those types of skills, because that is something that's the magic, as we've referenced before, that you just can't replicate. Even though they're things that you believe there might be a formula to, very often it's that aha moment or the connection in that room that's very difficult to replace. So younger members who are entering the workforce, there is a lot of doom and gloom around it. But I would say there's probably a lot more opportunity than people are realizing. And there are a lot more specialisms and things that juniors understand that people who are slightly older and slightly more experienced just don't get. And they're always going to understand where the opportunity is. Whereas I think once you get a bit older and grayer in your career, you sort of overlook. So, uh,
What are you
what's
saying, Dan?
your?
What are you saying there?
I am
I
saying
think you go on. Go on.
I'm saying that when you're younger and less experienced, you often believe that you should copy and mimic what people are doing. However, the managers and people ahead of you, they're only as good as their reputation. They're only as good as what they deliver. And very often within careers, you often have to learn as you go, or take people externally to your business and what they're doing and learn from them. So yes, there might not be these prolonged careers where you go in at a junior level, but there are going to be far more creative, progressive companies that are created at the end of it. And we might have to adapt as a society where people don't feel like there is a job for life or a career ladder that you go up. It might be something that you have to create yourself with or without AI.
I
And very
agree.
often some of this will have no AI attached to it at all.
I think for smart people, that's been the case for a while, Dan, that if I think back a generation or two, people would literally go to maybe one or two firms for their whole career. Obviously, probably since the turn of the century, maybe since the 90s, the younger generations coming through are moving a lot, and they're changing roles, etc., etc. I think flipping round your point as well. So there's the challenge for the young people you've talked about. When I think about the partners in the big law firms and the big accountancy firms, they're going to want to retire soon, and when they retire, they're going to want to take their piece out of the partnership and get paid as much as they can for it. And for that to have value, the market's got to believe and the world's got to believe that you've got future in your business. So the challenge for those guys is not just how many junior roles might we need in the future, but is actually the succession. How do we build tomorrow's talent if some of what happens has been taken over by AI? So that's the strategic challenge for those guys, because if they're going to realize the value they want and they've worked 30 or 40 years to get, they've got to work out how we transition to this next phase so that the business continues to grow, the firm continues to expand and have the value that they want for it. It's an interesting question. I wish I had the answer. I think I'd be a very wealthy man if I did, but it's an interesting question.
So the TLDR for the takeaways for our listeners are AI is having impact on junior roles. It likely will continue to have impact. However, there are many different steps around how to mitigate that or how to future-proof yourself as someone who's earlier on in their career or in fact later on in your career, knowing that you're going to have to spar and collaborate with AI. And then there's a huge opportunity around creating either your own companies or creating micro companies, either in line with another role or potentially having a number of different offerings yourself rather than going into a long ladder career job.
Completely agree. I think the two things I would say, if you're junior, get all over AI and work out, the role you fancy going into or the role you're going into, or maybe the role you're already in. You be the guy that works out where AI can best help with that role and make that role much more efficient. Get all over it, lead that charge, because somebody's going to lead that charge. It might as well be you. At the senior end, as we've talked about before, think hard about your own business and what's your future of work vision for your business. What do you see in 5 years' time? If AI is really integrated and the business is really getting advantage from it, what does that look like? Communicate that. Think hard with your leadership team about what does that mean for the junior roles in the business and how we evolve those to meet the new world. And I think we've covered it, Dan.
Well, thanks a lot for listening, everyone. I think this is something that we'll probably have to revisit again and again, but we've left people with a lot to consider and action.
Good to see you, my friend, and I'll see you next time.
Next time. Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.